Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. I'm John, your host. Joining me on this very special episode, if we time it right, this comes out on my birthday, and I'm really excited for it.
Oh, shit.
Because it's about a movie that's very important to me. But anyways, joining me is Ryan King.
Hey, I'm pretty excited here. You know, this is a podcast that gives you the sidereal podcasting, not the tropical podcasting.
Yeah.
All that stuff is wrong and old. You know, if you're 2,000 years old, that's okay. But no, we give the right shit.
If you accepted the world was flat, you could accept those other podcasts.
Yeah, then you can listen to other podcasts.
And also joining us is Michael Dixon.
Ryan, I have no idea what you just said, just like I have no idea what the fuck happened in this movie at all. So I'm going to need you guys to carry me on this episode.
We will carry you. You just carry the booze, my friend. We will get you where you need to go.
Yeah.
And we are talking about the 1976 fever dream that is known as the Astrologer.
My name is Craig Marcus Alexander, and I was born to lie, cheat, and steal.
Your dreams are much too large.
Well, Alexander is in financial problems.
We are well experienced in dealing with your kind here, Mr. Alexander.
Mr. Alexander is Mr. Alexander.
Mr. Alexander. If Craig Alexander gets out of the country, I will personally see to it that you are sent to the hottest hellhole that I can find.
Anybody who's ever gone into that country has never returned.
Mister, you're in trouble.
How did you find me?
Well, you can be sure that after chasing you around half the globe, it wasn't easy, Mr. Alexander.
Falling apart.
You do as you're goddamn told.
You're not losing your money. Oh, you're losing the whole goddamn thing.
Now I had the power to be what I've always wanted to be. The world's greatest mystic.
The Astrologer.
Do you really know your true sun sign? The dates used by today's tropical astrologers are incorrect.
Directed by Craig Denney. Craig Denney is, I don't even know how to describe this auteur. But
that's a bold word.
Yeah, it is a bold word, but there is a bit of an auteurship to what he does, I guess.
He has an eye for something. He has an intent.
Much like this movie and its soundtrack, I lifted a synopsis from another movie that's significantly more famous, and I just replaced several pieces of the synopsis with this movie's actual storyline. So let me see. Dixon, you might know what this is from, so let me just read it out for you. Let's play a little game show here. Sex, money, power, astrology. Brace yourself for an unintentionally true story from the late obscure filmmaker Craig Denney that critics are calling a balls-to-the-wall distillation of everything Denney is and wishes to be. Denney delivers the only performance of his career. As a young astrologer hungry for fame and glory in Long Beach, California, where corruption is king and more is never enough. His name is Craig Marcus Alexander, but soon the world will know him by a different name, the Astrologer. Together, Denney and his film crew deliver a story of American excess that takes you across the globe and back with an entirely unoriginal score and soundtrack, montages aplenty, and chock full of dry technical jargon from a pseudoscience that's long since been debunked. The Astrologer is without a doubt an absolute film from start to finish. Can you by chance name that synopsis? I kind of muddled it.
Is it from ChatGPT?
It is not from ChatGPT. I just took the back of the box from Wolf of Wall Street and I subbed in a bunch of the Astrologer into it. It's not, obviously they're not the same movie by any stretch, but the story is of a rise and fall of a character.
Who is a liar pretty much all the time. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't even know that that's what the story is, but...
Yeah, not even the IMDb synopsis, the true synopsis on IMDb knows what the story is. The Astrologer, just a bit of background from why I'm bringing this to this podcast. I have been threatening to bring Schlock here for a really long time. I don't qualify this
we were doing summer blockbusters and John was like, the Astrologer.
That's right. It was going to be...
Seven people have seen it. We're going to do it.
It's going to be the biggest blockbuster ever until it wasn't. I wanted to bring this because... with us talking about blockbusters and also with my birthday around the corner, a lot of people continue to ask me what my sign is as I tell them my birthday.
Oh,
and
I'm so sorry.
That just makes me remember that the Astrologer's out there. And I'm like, all right, I got to watch this again. This movie, I saw it I believe in 2016 when I was invited to a Weird Wednesday show, the Alamo Drafthouse in San Francisco. And it was by fate. The stars aligned just the right way that the actual Weird Wednesday movie that was supposed to be brought, the man who was supposed to bring it, his wife went into labor and he could not bring that movie. So the Astrologer was the movie they had on hand, and that was the movie that I got to watch. And I sat in the dark alone watching it, very confused, and probably much like what Dixon felt like. Just not knowing what the hell this was, but knowing that Craig Denney has a smug fucking face.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does.
Can't confirm. That's the one thing from this movie that I will never forget. Is his smug fucking face.
And I was just, for some reason, enamored with it. There's something weird about it that stuck in my brain after I saw it, and I just had to see it again. And I watched it with a few friends, and then I watched it again, and like again and again. And it's become, in my adult life, like what my Punisher was to my teen self.
John, how many times have you watched this movie?
It's got to be over 30 now. I don't
remember
my God. How many. Yeah, but it's like, at this point, it's just like a fun ride for me in the weirdest way possible. Like I kind of mentioned in the synopsis, the score is completely unoriginal, the soundtrack as well. I love both of those things. Not that they're unoriginal, but the actual like soundtrack is great. The Moody Blues are great. The songs that Craig picked, pretty great pop songs that were like hitting the top of the charts.
Come out of nowhere and generally are inappropriate
yes,
for what's going on.
Absolutely
but
are,
yes.
but I'll take it over, introducing some weird, hey, this is my nephew's band and we put him in the movie and now they're going to just sing this song that you don't know what the fuck it's about. I'm like, yeah, I'll take the Moody Blues over that. That sounds nice. Or Gustav Holst doing the planets, mostly Mars. It's weird how this is a movie that seems like it cut a lot of corners in its budget. It also got tied up in legal matters because the music that was used is not properly licensed. And yet it still cost $10 million when it came out and started with like a budget of 1.5 million. I have no idea where the other 8.5 came from. It was made over several years and it tells the story. It tries to tell the story of Craig Denney's character, Craig Marcus Alexander. It's very authentic for him to put himself into the movie under that name. He tries to kind of go and make something of himself, and then he doesn't. It just kind of collapses, both in the movie and in real life. And so I think that compared to the other bad movies I've watched, like The Room or, a Neil Breen film, any of those, this has a different charm to it that I want to talk about a little bit more, but I've already talked enough. I love this movie. As bad as it is, I find something about it alluring constantly, and I don't know why.
Is that charm in Craig Denney's beer belly?
It could very well be the beer belly that he rubs occasionally very attractively in any of the scenes. Yeah, it just so much about it. I'm very interested to hear what y'all think or what Dixon remembers from it. I think Dixon, it'll be like you talking from a fever dream, and that'll make it all the better.
Probably.
But I'll kick things over to the man who has seen it the second most times, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's the second most times of anyone on Earth.
Yeah,
John has seen it the most times of anyone on Earth at 30.
Yeah, it's a good question of how many people have seen this more than once. Even, I'm sure it's a really small subset have seen it once, but people who've seen it 2 or more times is probably a very, very small subset.
We're talking the very tail end of the distribution curve here. It's getting real small, yeah.
They thought the film was lost for 40 years, so there's quite a stretch where nobody could see this movie.
Yeah. Apparently it did release into some LA theaters, but it made like 90 grand, maybe, if.
That
and
seems
then was
high.
gone.
Got pulled after the first
almost
week.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. This would be the 4th time I've seen it. The first time John showed this to me, I think I can probably go back now as we go through whatever we go through. The point in the movie, there's like 2 points in the movie where my mind like leapt to a different level of understanding of like what was fucking possibly going on.
Yeah.
Because it takes some turns. I think when you first watch it, that you just are like, what is this? What is it trying to be? That it just kind of swerves a couple times. And since I've learned that they, I guess, were just making it up as they went, I think is really what was going on here.
I believe they were consulting astrology charts on the day of shooting for what they should do
No scripts,
next.
and they just kind of like, made it up as they went based on what the supposedly chart said. Then the editing is amazing that they made it into something. And I can test.
The editing is wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. But the fact that it comes out with something. So I know that we're going to have to just talk about bad movies and compare this to bad movies, because I think that's going to be a lot of the conversation here. I enjoy watching The Room, and I know that one is, that it is really funny. A lot of people know that and has since been exposed to it. But it's a play. Like, it's a decent school play, right? That is being filmed. It's not really, in my mind,
that is a
movie.
huge slight against plays, Ryan.
Yeah.
No, there are probably 1,000 just this year plays that some kid wrote in college or graduate school that was, about him and tear jerking in the world or whatever. Like I can see exactly what that package is. I'm not sure what the Astrologer is. Like I can't pin something else that's comparable to what it's supposed to be. It's unclear what the point of it even is. But it is a movie. Like that's the thing, is it does follow characters. It does have a plot. It uses things that you can kind of only do in a movie. It has like locations, sets, ? There's shots, there's wipes for whatever fucking reason, some effects work. Like it has all of the things that's like, that's what a play can't have. You can't have those in a play. And I'm like, so that's functionally is a movie. And this is the worst thing that's functionally a movie. Now, there is then a rung underneath this. And if we get to that level, John, like that's when we've really just exhausted everything. When we start getting into the territory of those things we've watched, it's like, it's not a movie. It functionally doesn't make sense. I don't even know who the characters are. Like there's no direction to it. That is the step below this. This is right at that level where it's just barely hanging on to characters and plot. And that's it.
What's that thing in a black hole called? The accretion disk or whatever? It's like on the outbound.
Yeah, right where it's still kind of together.
Where nothing has structure on the inside. Yeah, we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where this is.
Right before we reach the bookcase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Before I scream at Dixon that the answers are in his watch.
So yeah, no, it has a place in my mind. I've shared this. I think the last time before this viewing I watched it was with our previous guest, Warner, winner of the cross-country trip in an RV with me. And that was what I exposed him to this and Forbidden Planet.
What a lucky boy.
Were you driving while watching this?
No, that was we actually watched those back to back on one night, which is probably the fever dream if I had already driven one way across the country and was coming back a couple more nights across the country. It's like 5 nights into RV driving for days.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, Dixon?
Yeah, so the first time I watched this movie, I have now seen it twice, allegedly. The first time I watched this movie, John was organizing a screening of people to go see it at a local theater here. John was very excited about it. I was planning to go, got COVID, and was stuck at home. And I was in a state of COVID delirium, and I watched it, and I was like, John, what the fuck was that? This didn't make any sense. To the point that I had forgotten that I had actually watched it. And then when John invited me to come over and watch it again, I was like, I don't remember if I've seen this or if like I just remember John talking about it a lot and maybe I've seen some clips of it. And then you reminded me like, no, you've seen it because you had COVID and you told me you hated it. And then I watched it again on some substances and still did not enjoy it. But both times I've been in some sort of state of delirium that I have seen the film. This thing is really, really bad. Really, really, really bad. It feels like the first 2 acts of a crime film, like a Scarface or something, and then it just ends at the end of Act 2.
Yep.
And it's like the scene where he's alienated all his friends and his like 7th grade financial advisor comes, or not 7th, but a 7th financial advisor that has not passed the 7th grade has come and, told him that he's, being an asshole and he's losing all his money because he's making bad decisions and blah, blah, blah. And he throws a fit and quits and leaves. And then the movie just ends and credits roll. Like, wait a minute.
Out, yeah.
This is like the scene where he's supposed to like double down and go big and then like end up in poverty or arrested or something at the end of the movie. And that scene never comes. I was like, what the did they just run out of budget at this point? It's just over now. I it sounds like they had no script for this thing. And, maybe they just filmed all they could and then just decided the movie was over. One of the worst acted films that I've ever seen. Very bad, like old people makeup being used on the financial advisor.
Polish in the hair.
Yeah, like way too silver hair. It's too shiny. It doesn't work. Craig Denney is just a terrible actor. The movie makes no sense whatsoever. It keeps jumping around to all these things. Every plot description that I have found online of the movie says that he's like a con man. doing astrology who then realizes he can actually do astrology and then is like, making, doing whatever with that. And I'm like, I don't think the movie ever tries to even say that he's not just full of shit the whole time.
Yeah.
Which seems weird if he's actually doing astrology on the day of shooting to determine what they should do. Like, because his character doesn't seem like the movie is not trying to sell this character as a legit real astrologer that's actually helping anyone. Toward the end of the movie, it gets super meta and he starts making a movie called The Astrologer about himself.
Yes.
That's all just absurd. The editing was the wildest thing to me about this movie. I remember one that sticks out really clearly where there's like, they do like a multi-cut zoom into this dead body in a casket. And it's like, just jump from, 20 feet away to 15 feet away to 10 feet away to 5 feet away to 1 foot away. And it's just like, it's not a smooth zoom in. It's just so jarring and weird.
In rhythm with what he says too. He's like,
"There's a son of a bitch trying to break up my marriage."
And each beat of that zooms in closer to the casket.
And there are all kinds of editing choices throughout the movie that make no sense, that are so jarring to the viewer, that don't help the story at all. I was kind of in awe at how terrible this thing is. You can see where the budget went because they did on location shooting all over the world for this movie. Like that was the budget, just traveling.
Underwater camera scenes too.
Yeah,
like
underwater
really
shots.
Long underwater shots.
Don't know what the point of any of that was, frankly. John, the pre-roll that you put together before the movie was far superior to the movie itself.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this movie really sucks ass real hard. So, John, what is your fascination with this? I'm kind of like, I understand like movies like The Room. I really liked watching The Room. It's terrible, but I enjoy the stupidity of it. And there are bad movies that I can really get into and enjoy making fun of. Love me a good Jean-Claude Van Damme movie to laugh at, make fun
which I
of.
still haven't seen.
Yeah, somehow John still has not seen Gymkhana.
Someday.
But yeah, that kind of stuff. Like I love those kind of bad movies. But with this one, I'm just like, dude, this is rough.
I think on the way out, on your way leaving my party, I said to you, not a corporate decision in this movie, all personal.
Oh yeah.
Which is part of my fascination with it. Like The Room has that Wiseau brought in a bunch of experts to do his shooting and just tell the story he wrote. And this one, it's even more like freehand. I think I'm also just fascinated. I was talking with a friend of mine about it. And my friend was like, I'm really fascinated with the fact that there is an artistic voice somewhere in this movie and it's just doing stuff. Like there's cool sequences. There's interesting experiments. It feels like the first film made by like an independent filmmaker when they're still trying to figure out how to use a camera.
Mm-hmm.
But it's injected with this self-importance of Craig's like fascination with astrology and sidereal astrology, whatever the fuck that is. I looked it up on Wikipedia and I still don't understand.
Yeah, is it my type of astrology is right and all the other ones are wrong and you need to listen to me?
Yeah, I think
all the other signs are off by like a month or something because of the tilt of the Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea is that over time, the constellations have actually moved from wherever they originally were. And so whatever constellation you were born under isn't actually what they tell you.
By the way, you're a sidereal Virgo. You're not really a Libra. Because you see, if you were born 2,000 years ago in this lifetime, or that you believe that the world is flat, then you could accept the fact that you're a Libra. But you're not. You're a Virgo.
You've been born under something new because of the shifting of time. But he never says that, and he says a bunch of other shit that has nothing to do with just like what constellation is there. I don't even know what the other crap is.
The other thing is with other movies, not just like Wiseau's, The Room has these moments of it is to Ryan's point, like there's a stage play aspect to it where you're supposed to give the big, meaty, dramatic lines. Like Wiseau tries to act the shit out of that role. I think of somebody like a Neil Breen or any of the other like ego-sploitation directors who in their movies, they crusade against things. Whatever they hate in their politics comes out in that art where they're just like, I'm going to do a monologue about how the government is bad and we shouldn't trust them.
By releasing these files today will not endanger any innocent persons, but they will identify governments and corporations that have committed fraudulent and criminal activities against mankind.
And all of that kind of comes really ham-fisted. I'm not saying this movie isn't, but those characters are put on a pedestal where they are the heroes of their story. Johnny is a tragic figure in the room who's supposed to be sympathized with.
Everyone's
and it doesn't
out
work
against
at all.
him.
Yeah, everybody's against him. But this is a crime drama that it seems Craig cast himself as the villain of. And that was kind of one of the things I wanted to broach. Is Craig a true villain, or is he an antihero in a way? Because if he's trying to prop astrology up as being legitimate, he'd have to be an antihero, I would guess, to even legitimize it. But if he's trying to destroy astrology, he'd be a villain. Like, he would use it to his own ends. And I am of the opinion that he's a villain. And that's part of where the fascination is Craig Denney died when he was 35. He shot
Allegedly.
this movie. Yeah, we don't know if he's still out there.
I read that there are rumors that he faked his death.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's true. But I saw a death certificate in some of my research, and it seemed pretty legit.
Did you see the body, John?
I didn't see the body, so I don't know for sure. He could have gone back to his planet like Elvis.
Have you made a pilgrimage to his grave?
No, somebody else did, though. They took a picture with it.
Oh, where is it?
It's somewhere near you. Yeah, it's somewhere near you, Ryan.
Yeah,
right next to James Dean.
Yeah. Yeah, but like he died before he could actually talk a little bit more about this. Another thing is this movie didn't used to be targeted as being a movie. It was supposed to be an 8-hour TV series. Like, it was supposed to be 30-minute chunks where they could funnel in ads in between. And they ran out of budget. Obviously, we all can tell. And they were just like, fuck it, just make a movie and let's release it. And so at the beginning of the movie, it says Craig Denney's theatrical version because it's a cut of what was going to be his TV show about an astrologer that adventures.
Which they mentioned during the movie in the movie.
We use first names and everything of all my friends. We'll get them in the show. And it'll be about the adventures of an astrologer around the world. We'll call it The Astrologer.
All of the assets too that they show in that, like him holding up a Variety magazine, that's actually what was published in the Variety. The local copy was about how there was a horoscope company bankrolling the film, and there was like a whole astrology industry behind it. And so like those elements, the more you peel back, like what the fuck is this movie? The more you find like these little nuggets here and there of the history behind it. And I think that I'm fascinated with that. And I'm fascinated with an artist's choice like Craig. Like, I'm not used to somebody who is so full of ego making a movie where they cast themselves as the most unlikable villain knowably in the film. Like, Craig does so much sociopathic shit throughout this film. He trades a woman for a boat. He hires his friend who has never gotten past the 7th grade to do his finances just so he can solidify his loyalty within the fucking mafia he's running.
There's such a long scene where they have that conversation too. He's like, I want you to be my financial advisor. The guy's like,
hell, I don't know anything about financial administration. Christ, what do I know? I've never been into the big business before. I've never even gone past the 7th grade.
I don't care. We have a long history together. I know you're going to be good at it. And
I trust you.
What?
Yeah.
I'll pay you $100,000 a year.
An awful lot of bread. Hell yeah!
He talks about like he goes to save his wife from prostitution, his ex-wife from prostitution, only to trap her in his home as his trophy, basically. Like all of these things, these are not the things that a hero would do. At no point in this movie does Craig do a single goddamn good thing. And I'm just fascinated with what their plan was, what they were trying to do. And at the same time, it gives such a stage to different kinds of charade in terms of, they do like tarot reading, they do an astrology reading, they do a palm reading. They have like whole sets that are dedicated to that. And it functions into the story in some dumb way. And then one of my friends had this whole theory. They steal gems at one point from like a Kenyan tribe. And that was a whole scene that I'm sure you remember, Dixon, where they sat down and talked to that guy.
Pombe, the America, they scotch. Alexander.
Here America?
Yeah.
Natoka America?
Yeah.
Mzee sana, tutakunywa kabisa sana. Asante sana.
Ask the chief what time it was born, the month and the year.
For like ever and give him scotch. And it's like, what the fuck's going on? But they steal those gems, and then that becomes like this underlying thing of they have bad juju. The entire movie, the rest of the movie, you never think about it again.
What was even the point of that scene?
And that was
is that how he finances his empire?
That's how
what is the point of any given, like, you can take any given scene out of this and be like, what exactly was the point? Like, they fit together kind of, but each thing you're like, why?
But like at
Why
least
is
some
this
of them
happening?
you're like, okay, if that's furthering the plot of him like going to success and becoming an asshole and leading to like his failure that we never see. But like going to Kenya randomly and like standing next to a bunch of shirtless jack dudes and finding some gems and stealing them. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. Like,
Well, he does. Yeah, I guess he gets like $2 million out of selling those jewels.
Yeah.
But then almost immediately the movie, within seconds, he has a TV show.
Yes.
Right. And he's already figured out all these other things and has all these other great successes within like seconds just off of being able to predict shit. So it's like, did he ever need the gems in the first place?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a piece of it to me. See, that's where like we can talk about what the fuck this movie is. And that's where I think it's kind of nice that Craig's not, look, I'm not saying I'm glad the dude's dead, but I'm sure everybody here is not.
I'm saying that. I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah.
I wish I could talk to him, honest.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could talk to him and be
I just think that it would, and that's kind of, it leads into another topic I want to talk about is like the mystique behind movies like this, where it's so baffling. Like, imagine if Wiseau died before The Room really took surface and had traction.
Mm-hmm.
There's like this element where artists are so eager to talk about their work, and especially people who are ego exploitative, they are like, I'm gonna make my truth, my swan song, whatever, and I'm gonna tell you immediately what it's all about, and it completely demystifies everything with the movie. And so I don't want to know what this is really trying to do. I'm happy that it's ambiguous because it keeps it interesting for me, and I can change perspective when I watch it. And it feels like what David Lynch does too, where he just doesn't tell you what his film is about. And It's just that you don't get that opportunity with movies like this that could blow up. The Astrologer is not. It continues to not have blown up. It's been uploaded to archive.org, and I highly doubt it gets any traffic there.
Yeah, I agree. Like, my fascination is trying to understand the aspects of how this got made, the decisions in making it. Like, all of that is very fascinating to me. And the more I dig into it, the more I'm like, Craig Denney wasn't anything or anyone. It's a bit like with Tommy Wiseau. You dig back and you're like, where did he get the money from? Like, to begin with, where did he come from?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, okay, we have some decent theories, but I'm like, you kind of have some with Craig Denney, but it's still like entirely unclear. Like, his age isn't entirely clear. Where he's from isn't entirely clear.
His uncle was a famous actor.
His uncle was?
His uncle was a famous actor.
What?
Yeah.
He claims to have a bunch of money and had a family that appears to have money, but then, like, was any of that? Like, I think he just talked his way into a movie. He actually produced another few movies. I found that out recently. I was kind of fascinated by that. Movies that are still around and still watchable, but don't have any reference to him anymore. Like, they've erased his name. Yeah, and I think it's like, I think he made everything up as he went, and I'm not sure. I think he is the Craig from this movie. I think he bullshitted his way through everything and mentioned astrology stuff, but he really didn't give a shit about it either. Like, it's impossible to tell.
And that's where, like, it's fascinating. The movie starts off with him saying,
My name is Craig Marcus Alexander, and I was born to lie, cheat, and steal.
And it's the most jarring way to start a movie when you're trying to endear your character. Like, Jordan Belfort doesn't start that shit in Wolf of Wall Street. He starts out, bright-eyed, and he kind of talks about, you see him doing drugs and landing a helicopter first. That hooks you. But then you start back off at the bottom and you see him kind of growing innocently.
Okay, so on Wikipedia, it says that Craig Denney's mom wrote the movie, Dorothy June Pidgeon, and she is a relative of Walter Pidgeon, who is a 2-time Academy Award nominee for Best Actor in like the 40s. So I was thinking it was he was her brother, but that may not be the case. Has the same last name and is related to Walter Pidgeon somehow. So I don't know if there's some family money there.
She didn't actually write it. They stuck her name on it somehow in exchange for some money, it seems like.
Craig's
there's some funding from that.
Yeah, we could debate this all day, but Craig's father supposedly owned a TV station. Craig started in radio. He worked his way into a TV production position under his father.
That guy has the most boring voice I've ever heard. He was in radio?
Yeah, he was.
That's wild.
I don't exactly know.
Fired from 40 different stations, which is unsurprising.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
40 different stations?
Dude,
wow.
Craig's going for the record, or he was.
He doesn't. He has neither the face nor voice for radio.
Why was he just like applying under pseudonyms to these stations?
Just kept going.
Craig A. Denney, Craig B. Denney, Craig C.
Oh, that's my brother. No, different guy.
Yeah, it's totally different. But I want to know, because we're kind of talking about why I'm fascinated with the movie. not just about this movie, but like, what do y'all find as interesting? What's the mystique you would find behind a movie? What really hooks you? And we're not talking like a good movie, but like just a good, I want to know the production behind this, or like, what are the things that you look for in a movie where you're like, that sticks in my brain, even if I didn't like it.
Like a movie that I just like am drawn to inexplicably and I have trouble
figuring
it out. I don't know. I guess probably the time that sticks out to me most is watching Robert Bresson for the first time. And it was like, I don't know that I like that, but I kept wanting to come back to it and watch his movies again and watch more of his movies. And now I've gained an appreciation for what he's trying to do. And like, I, really like his films, but I didn't at first. But yeah, I don't know, but he just makes movies in such a jarring fashion that's very different than everyone else. And so it was like, because they're so violently different than any other movie, I was just like, holy shit, this is really interesting. I need to like, I couldn't get it out of my head.
I think there's that, like, so just to pull from that Bressonian, interpretation, like there's this kind of, there's an intention behind what Bresson does. There's a method to his madness in how he pulls a film together. And I think that that's why I'm fascinated here, because we have like an independent filmmaker who got all of the money to make an opus film or TV series he was going to try to do. And watching like him fail in these different ways, it creates more mysteries in the movie making itself that I think is fascinating, where you're like, what exactly is he trying to express, and how could it have better been expressed? Like we've talked about other movies where I can easily whip up a treatment. Like, oh, here's how this movie probably should have gone if they wanted to do this. I have no idea how to do that with The Astrologer. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like a tough nut to crack. And that's, I think, where I'm kind of fascinated. But Brian.
Yeah. I look at art, like I take the simple definition of art of like evoking emotion. Like if something evokes emotion, then it's art. And I also follow the like, once it's out of the hands of the creator, it can become something else, even if that's not what the intention was, which is a good example with The Room. I actually think that was fully earnest. Tommy was trying his best, and he now retroactively is like, nah, I was trying to...
He calls it a dark comedy now.
Yeah. Right, and I'm like, it wasn't. It was fully earnest, but it is, in a way, the art of it isn't his intent. The art of it is its complete, like, crappy nature that just pulls out this like fascination and comedy, that he didn't necessarily intended to have, but it does have. And so I think the movies that then I can just lose myself, and The Room is a good example because I saw that one on Cartoon Network and I had no fucking clue what was going on.
Yeah.
That if I can lose myself in it, because we all have heard my opinions on all kinds of random shit where I cannot lose myself because I'm locked up on such things. And there are so many like mistake type situations in this movie, but I'm so distracted by the emotions of confusion and everything else that's going on that I overlook that.
Yeah.
I would say like recent, and then it almost becomes like an obsession, like those movies that become an obsession because I want to know like, well, why, and who are these people, and like, what were these choices? And I would say like on the good side, the most recent, like after it, I had an immediate obsession, is kind of Ari Aster stuff, where like the first I saw of his stuff, I was like, what? Like, oh my God, there's so much around it. And there's so many like tight decisions and all these little things in it. And I want to know kind of what was going on, what was really going on, like, my own theories of it, kind of becoming obsessed afterwards. That's like a good side of it, right? Yeah. Or something, even where it's like this, Spider-Man, Spider-Verse movies where it's like all the little details I want to go back and like look at and see all these things in the background. But on the far side, there are these terrible things that we watch, and it is the fascination of like, how could this be that terrible? Like, how could a human create something and fundamentally not understand? Like, it almost is that like, did an alien come down and attempt to make something?
Yeah.
And this is like their attempt. I have to be like, we're going to see more shit that's like AI like, that's that, where it's the uncanny valley of a movie.
Yeah. You get, there were supposed to be beats there and it, but you can't tell what the fuck the beats were intended to be at all.
A good, actually, what you're saying there, I was going to say a good kind of call to that. The Studio Ghibli music, I'm forgetting his name at the moment, but the composer, he purposely is combining classical, like Japanese, like pre-Western Japanese music and Western music. And it ends up where he has like the beats that you would expect of a normal like Western rhythm aren't there. And so it kind of creates this feeling of like the song kind of just keeps going and feels a little unnatural because those beats are so used to us. And that's why that music has become so recognizable and memorable for him, is that he has this kind of like, he's doing it wrong.
Yeah.
In a way, but he's good at doing it. Like, he knew all the rules, then he did it wrong, and it's good. Where it's like Denney,
Didn't know any of the rules.
Understand. He watched a movie one time and like half-assed something together. I have no idea.
It's if they're filming spontaneously, it's amazing how much they put into filming certain things spontaneously, like destroying a whole car, or
right,
like getting
was that one
helicopter
take?
footage under. Yeah, it's just like, all right, well, we just have this car, let's destroy it, fuck it, and working that into whatever plot there is. But like talking about doing it wrong, certain sequences and stuff. There's one scene that sticks out where they go to a bar in Tahiti, and he's trying to fence some jewels once he's stolen them. And this guy just walks up behind him. The guy is brandishing a knife, but the way that the camera work is done, you never really see the knife. You can, like, if you look for it, you'll see it. But the framing is done so poorly, or done with an intention to just focus on our target, Craig, that you never see it. And so the guy just walks up next to him and Craig looks at him, and then Craig smashes a bottle on his fucking face and runs. And that whole scene completely misses what it's trying to communicate, which is Craig's a wanted man or would be backstabbed by somebody. And instead it just looks like Craig just fucking takes out anybody who gets near him that he suspects of doing shit. It muddles whatever the message is that you're trying to get from it. And I think that those are those scenes where it's like, what exactly do you want from your movie, Craig? Like,
yeah. So we've danced around. Like, what do we think Craig wanted out of this movie?
Let's all go around and say, Dixon.
He wanted to get laid, I think. It's very weird to me that like he was pursuing fame through radio or movies or whatever, because he is maybe the least charismatic person I've ever seen, and like he doesn't even seem to be trying to act or to make himself like, this is not a star making role. Like, he's just talking blankly, staring blankly in all the scenes. He hasn't written anything that's like interesting for him to do and to like, you know, get his chops into as an actor. He seems to aggressively not care about whether he's famous if you just look at what he's doing on screen, but you look at how he's living his life and he's pouring all of his money into this movie and he's trying to get into radio and all these things. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand this at all. He also, like, he seems to be just wearing his own clothes throughout the whole movie. Like,
he escaped from like a Gap strip mall.
Like, there's not even costumes for the character. I think one time he has like a turban on his head, and it's like he's supposed to be this great astrologer, and he's wearing like a striped t-shirt and like shorts.
A spotted
He gets some, like,
that's what it was.
Yeah,
he
like,
gets some questionable sports jackets in the later half of the movie.
He had like a leather blazer at later in the movie when he got rich, but like
when he liked to sit in front of a red curtain with a red tie and shirt on.
Just like, what are you even doing? Like, if you really want to become a star, which is all the evidence would point to the fact that he does, he just seems to like not be trying to capitalize on that. So I don't know.
Ryan, what do you think Craig was trying to do?
I do think legit Craig Denney is a grifter, and that this movie was one of those, like, I think he thought he'd make money and like work his way through a movie. He was like, well, I'll make a movie and then that will bank all these other things.
The Astrologer became the talk of Hollywood. The picture grossed $145 million. We were dubbing in French, German, Dutch, and Spanish.
That's right, $145 million. That's what it grossed.
The
movie
fact
within
that,
the movie.
The movie within the movie is so shitty, so equally shitty.
Yes, it is.
That, like, that's amazing to me that he didn't even try to make like an amazing movie within his own movie. He just made the same movie in there and thought that was a hit. But it almost feels like this is accidentally like playing his hand of showing how much of a con he is and the inability that he has. But at the beginning, he's like, the Craig character is a liar.
Yep.
He says, everything's a lie. I grew up a liar. And like, my life is just all lying and stealing from people. And even today I'm stealing millions, which if this is supposedly the Craig at the end of the movie, he's not, he's bankrupt.
Yep.
So I'm like, is that the actual Craig saying that? Like, I'm
They dropped
stealing
that framing
millions
device.
making this movie right now?
But also, it's his financial advisor that has not passed the 7th grade who's telling him he's bankrupt.
True,
so
he doesn't
Yeah.
actually. Yeah,
Who knows?
diversify, not
Yeah.
diversify. It's unclear to me.
They do not know what the word diversify means.
They don't know what that means.
You're
at
in, the,
all.
you're in the black, Craig. That's bad. That's bad.
Yeah. The weird thing that caps this off, because I feel like the first time I saw it, I thought like they were trying to say something about astrology, like they named it Astrologer. The whatever his friend is, that person's actually still doing astrology crap.
I know he
and they
passed away
used
last
astrology to make the like decide what to do each day.
Yeah.
But the line at the end that he puts up from King Lear that
Yes.
essentially says like you have your failures that are your own fault.
Yep.
And then you want to blame something else. So you blame the moon and the stars and whatever. And I'm like, so he knows that he's fucking up, I guess. And he knows that astrology is bullshit excuse for your fuck ups. I'm like, I don't understand.
That's where like I come into thinking about this. And this is again, like, I think that this movie is about the rise and fall of a man being humbled and the dangers of messing with astrology on the wrong side of it. I'm not saying like, I firmly believe that's what it actually is, but I think that's what Craig was going for is like, look, if you're like going to abuse this art form, this fucking pseudoscience, then it's going to like come for you. Eventually your hubris will consume you or some shit. Does a terrible job.
If you abuse the pseudoscience, like he calls
if you
it out
abuse
as
the
bullshit.
pseudoscience,
Like,
exactly. Which is where it's just like conflicting all the time. And that's where it leads me to think this movie, whether Craig intended it or not, is a dark comedy. And I thoroughly enjoy how stupid of a dark comedy it is because in the first 2 minutes, he reads a woman's palms, gets it wrong, gives her $10 back, and says he's going to marry her. He marries her, and you cut to them standing in front of
Didn't see that
his
one
house.
coming, did you?
And she's like,
I've never lived in a trailer before, but
Well, it's only temporary.
and it's so funny. And he's like,
With our charts and everything the way they are, we're going to be living like kings and queens very shortly.
and then it's like hard cut to
It's been 2 years now, and Daria and I are not living like kings and queens.
Dude, I love that one.
And
Yeah.
it's just like those moments where it has like this weird self-aware humor to it that undercuts the integrity of his character at every turn. When he's doing that tribal chief conversation and he's that whole scene, everybody is just bewildered and like, the fuck is going on? I assume that's what our audience felt like when we were watching it. But he's trying to read that chief's astrological charts and he says, your father died like a year ago. And the chief is like, no. But you can't tell because there's no fucking subtitles. And then he goes,
Yeah.
your mother died between 6 and 8 years ago. He's like cold reading. And the chief's like, no, not, you can tell by the body language. He's like, no. Craig just goes, he's got 40 wives. And it makes the chief laugh. And it exposes that astrology is like a thing that like manipulates other humans into telling you where their fucking cursed jewels are. I don't know. But the fact that he constantly fails to predict anything.
Yeah.
And then somehow the Navy enlists his help. And like, we haven't even talked about the military contract Craig lands.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the logical gap with astrology or card reading or palm reading or whatever that you're always like, well, why isn't the person like amazingly rich? If they can predict the future or whatever, why do they have these failures in their life? Why aren't they amazingly rich or whatever? And if Denney is like saying here, like, oh, well, this character, his greed is his undoing, even though he's good at astrology. Like the core lesson is like, oh, you should just not be greedy.
Yeah.
That's not really clear either.
Yeah.
That's what really happens. It mainly, I would say this movie, as far as like what the conflict is a series of people saying, I'll take care of that, and then not taking care of it.
That's
this
the phrase of this movie is, I'll take care of it. Even from the beginning, they say, I'll take care of it like 3 times, and they're talking about getting permits or some shit. And it's just
like, I'll take care of it. They did not take care of it.
a lot of, you can tell too, there's not a script because a lot of scenes just improvise for too long and people run out of things to say. And it's like apparent from the get-go.
All day long, and you got us 8 tickets? These people here all walk away. They're not interested in us.
That's $40 more than we had 5 minutes ago.
Oh, it's just crazy. I can't go on doing this.
Your dreams are much too large.
Much too large, huh?
Yes.
What about the sheriff over there? What about his permits? Yeah, we don't have any.
Okay, well, I'll take care of them.
Yeah, you take care of it. Do you know we can go to jail for this?
Yeah, okay, I'll take care of it.
Don't even have a license.
Take care
Well,
of
it's against the law to do that in this state.
I realize it. Believe me, I'll take care of him.
when I talk about this having like what I say is like good editing, is I think this is like New York Ninja, where they just ended up with a fuck ton of footage
Mm-hmm.
and went back and sort of crammed something together. Because there's so much like ADRing over scenes that it's clear like we filmed something and we're just going to ADR off screen. Like these two people need to be talking, zoom in on the wine glass. There's the conversation. Just don't show their mouths because obviously that's not what we're talking about. I need you now to just dub over explaining like, yeah, I ended up talking to this guy about something else, but now I want him, because we have this footage, to be an American who's buying the jewels. So just fucking say that that's what's happening over it. Like, and then there's flashbacks to scenes that never happened.
Yes. There's very long montages. It's like Rocky IV style montages to just like pad out that runtime.
Suddenly there's a montage.
Songs. Yeah.
Like time will pass in the blink of an eye in some scenes, and then sometimes it's a montage. So this is the part where I'm like, he knows what a montage is. He shows a fucking calendar dates flying by to pass time. But he divorces his wife off screen in an argument we just overhear.
I love that scene. It's so great. That's my other, like, it's a dark comedy because certain shots are just so funny where it's that static shot on their trailer and he's like, I'm tired of you always naysaying. And like, you think about like Marriage Story where fucking Adam Driver is just,
every day I wake up and I hope you're dead. Dead like if I can guarantee Henry would be okay. I'd hope you get an illness and then get hit by a car and die.
And then you get this where it's a static shot of like a fucking trailer and you just hear,
not staying in this place one more night, and don't ask me to.
Well, God damn it, why can't you have any patience with anybody? I'm trying to make things go for us, and you want to walk out at the last minute.
You've had 2 years. What more do you want?
I'm going to divorce you now.
Tired of you never believing in me. And then it just hard cuts to, all right, well, I guess I'm smuggling diamonds now.
Yeah.
I've been caught by the Kenyan government and I have to run.
I read that the woman who played his wife is his first cousin. And
Wow.
They do a lot of smooching in this movie.
Yeah, they do. He saves her from that room with the mirror that says shit on life. And God is dead. Written in very neat handwriting.
Ryan, you were talking about that montage sequence with the calendar dates turning over. It's just like footage of a boat out at sea, not really doing much, and just like seeing like a day calendar where each page is a different day, just turning, but not really in any particular order. It's like it's all moving forward, but it's like November 1st, November 4th, November 5th, November 9th, November 16th. It just like keeps going for like 2 or 3 months of time. And it's like, what are we even doing here? This is fucking insane.
Yeah. For a while, I thought I was trying to do some shit by prime numbers or something. I don't fucking know what the formula was.
There's no discernible. It's like picking out roughly like 40% of the days in the month and just running through them for some reason. I don't know why.
So this time I sat down and I wrote down the time leaps because I was just fascinated at like what time does this movie actually get to being the movie?
Of course you did.
Yeah.
and like how much does it leap? Because it honestly, like, I think just trying to gel with the movie at the beginning where he just like keeps explaining like, well, I was 14 and he was in a chain gang when he was 14. and then he's like, magically he's 26. And then 2 years passes and he's 28 and then he's married and then he's divorced. Like the beginning of this movie is just fucking whiplash. For 9 minutes, we go from him being 14 to like married and divorced. Like it just all flies by so fast. And then we get into this like long scene. And that was the part where at the beginning I was like, whoa, we're just flying through this guy's life. We go through this like side diatribe about diamonds. And when we hit that fucking Moody Blues and the calendar like coming off, that was the first point where I was like, I'm lost. I'm so lost. I don't understand how time is passing.
Mm-hmm.
People are dying as soon as we meet them. Like things are just flying by. And then it kind of gels in the middle. I kind of got back into it. And when it fucking hits the movie within the movie, that I was like,
that launches
I'm
you.
off of it. And then the movie's over. Like that's the point where I'm like, this is fucking off the hinges. And then it just ends.
I turned to my captive audience at that one of those moments and I was like, how long do you think is left in this movie? And somebody's like, John, please, God, I cannot handle. And I was not going to say it, but there's like not much left of the movie when I asked that question. There's like nothing really. It's watching him kill a man he's jealous of, watching him get pardoned by the Navy, I guess. And then watching him lose all of his millions and fucking squander it and cry at a pool.
Yeah.
It's empty.
It's the 56-minute mark where he gets his wife back. And it's the the 1 minute 10 mark where he kills the guy, and then it's 1 minute 17 or 1 hour 10 where he kills the guy, and 1 hour 17 the movie's over. Like we go from like the peak of his life to the end of his life in 17 minutes.
Yes.
We do need to talk about the military contract because that is just fucking insane. Like he is such a good con artist that he's able to convince the United States military to put him on staff as to pay him fees to give them, astrological signs to kill their enemies. Like fucking what? Like how do we get the U.S. military to send money to astrologers and stop sending it to Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and Halliburton and all these people? If we can just siphon a little bit of money away from those companies and send them to some horse shit con artists, that would be a huge improvement for American society and the world at large, I think.
Yeah. The men who stare at charts.
Yeah.
Yeah. This time I wrote down what he said in that scene. So one, I love that fucking office. This is there's money in this movie, and then there's suddenly not money in this movie. Every like Kenyan police headquarters and Navy, Navy Admiral office is such bullshit.
Yep.
The Navy Admiral has this like gigantic American flag so that you know that this is legit.
So you know it's a government office.
I listened because I was writing down all the astrology stuff on this go through, and I listened to what he says. We see him like teaching a class about a sub or a plane ? That crashed.
This was the last time the voice of Lieutenant Taylor was ever heard from again.
And he goes into this long bit about angular planets and moons.
Now, an interesting note is that the angular moon was in conjunction with angular Neptune when Flight 19 was scheduled. When angular Mars is partile, opposition to angular Neptune, and square to angular Uranus, the double approaching square of Mars to angular Uranus suggests a release of tension to the opposing quadrant.
And testicular left rotations of
what?
Whatever. Yeah. And then at the end, this poorly French accented for no reason, fucking off-screen person asks him,
why is it that when the moon is conjunct Neptune, we have that problem of not being able to see what the outcome could possibly be?
Because he's like, well, obviously it was going to fail, right? Because like angular moon, angular Neptune, obviously it was going to fail in the devil quadrant of the devil triangle. And the guy asks him, he's like, hey, how come when there's an angular moon, we can't know what's going to happen?
And then it
cuts. It just cuts. He doesn't answer the question. But I was like, he's teaching a class where he legitimately says, okay, see this sub failure? Here's all the astrology things that were there, and that tells us it was going to fail. Oh, by the way, though, that won't tell you that something's going to fail in the future. All right, kids, class dismissed. And like, that's what he's doing. He's just conning
astrology
the whole thing.
Is a great way to tell what we should have done in the past.
That's right. Yes. It's a fantastic hindsight.
Yeah. There's a South Park bit about that, right?
Captain Hindsight, the hero of the modern age. Once known as Jack Brolin, a reporter for the National News, the hero was born when a freak accident gave him the amazing power of extraordinary hindsight. From toxic spills to unjust wars, there is no task too large for Captain Hindsight.
Yeah, Captain Hindsight. Yeah, his naval contract, which comes through in the end when he kills a man. And that's another part where, like, we talked about, we kind of glossed over that the transition to the Moody Blues song while he's on the sea happens immediately after a woman dies, is horribly lost to quicksand and screams and everything. And there's like dramatic, they play Mars and it's like really dramatic. And then it just hard cuts to him staring out at a boat waving, and it plays Tuesday Afternoon in a very whimsical way.
Afternoon.
And that like just feeds into my theory.
All my friends are dead from snakes and zipits.
Just feeds into my theory that he's an absolute sociopath and intended to be a villain for this entire feature or TV show, whatever it was going to be. The
Maybe
fact that
he is a
sociopath
back. And he's just incapable of interpreting or displaying human emotion.
That
and
could
he
very well
thinks
be.
he's like fucking selling it hard and setting himself up as a big time star, and everyone else knows he's not.
Yeah, it could very well be that, and all his friends just kind of went along with it because he manipulated them into doing it. I don't know who really can say, but I had a question. One of my friends, when I was talking to him, he was like, hey, you should ask this question here. Shout out to James McAnally, buddy. I love you. Glad that you watched The Astrologer with me all these times. James asks, were there any moments that struck you as genuinely artistic?
No.
In this movie.
The cigarette going down the urinal? No?
Honestly, a little. I don't know.
That happened twice, didn't it? Did I dream that?
They just did those sick cuts right into it.
Oh, yeah.
It does this bizarre zoom cut into the cigarette going through the hole in the urinal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the the cinematographer Alan Gornick for some of these, what would be, if it wasn't for the digital compression of the scan, breathtaking scenes. Like the footage for some of that is great. Like them at sea, there's some gorgeous rotating around that ship, and it would have been
it's
beautiful.
like some helicopter shots. And,
the underwater, it's like clear what's going on even through the compression. I could still see what was supposed to be the purpose of it. Like there's good cinematography here and there, and there's some weird experimental shit. Like they take a first-person camera into the bathroom for some fucking reason, show us a urinal and a bunch of women's like naked women portraits and all that shit. But yeah, beyond that, like everything else is just a fever dream of montaged clips that I can't make any sense of, and I don't know if it's artistic.
It's amazing. I would say from like an artistic, there are these moments of like trying something. When we talk about bad movie bingo, there are these like every once in a while, it's like we try something that's new. Yeah. But also this movie like forgets what it was doing partway through as well. Because early in the movie we have like swipes a couple of times, and we fucking get rid of that. The whole whatever is going on, like actually getting the gems and the guy gets bit by the snake is so fucking horribly shot. It's unclear what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like the same. His wife kind of dies off screen. We only get the flashback to her going into the quicksand in later in the movie.
Yeah.
But then it's like we have this scene in the bathroom and the bar where it's like all of these couples, this weird nudity, all this weird horniness with music playing over it. That like the fucking cigarette goes in the hole at the end, or him fighting with his wife.
Yeah.
The like slow-mo dinner of their relationship falling apart.
Oh my God, I forgot about that scene.
Dixon asked
me. It's so ridiculous.
Yelling,
but it's
like, John, did you cut this in?
Yeah, I was like, John, you did this right. There's no way this happened. There's no way someone chose to show a dinner scene in slow motion for like 2 minutes. There's no way.
But yeah, and the same with the boat. I'm like, those are all things where I'm like, they get across something. Like they use the music and the acting and the cinematography to actually get something across, and that'll be followed by a scene that completely fails to understand any of those things again. Like it's gone.
Well, and then there's these visual metaphors that hit in the latter half of the movie that like when you're watching it, you're like, this is fucking weird editing. But when I sit and think about it a little bit more, I'm like, okay, there's like intention I can sense behind it. Like the whole sequence where Craig's wife is cheating on him with a man named John, who comes over for a drink and then immediately leaves, which is just an awkward scene in general. But then they're
she invites to take her out while she knows her husband is home.
Yeah.
I don't entirely, but I also love that Craig's like, make your exit to him and trying to be as tough as possible, but he's still just so Craig about it.
Honey, why don't you get our guests some drinks? Sir, you need to leave. Get out of here right now.
Hey man, you got it all wrong. There's nothing between us. It just leaves. But when John's like back and making out with Darian while she's trying to sleep, which is fucking weird. They're playing like a weird Little Red Riding Hood. It's like a German Little Red Riding Hood interpretation on TV. And he gets to like this area and they're interspicing scenes of like the full moon. And there's like some symbolism there of like, this is when like a man can turn into an animal, like when the werewolves come out. And then the moment that they show a hard cut of Little Red Riding Hood finding a werewolf behind a door, or just the big bad wolf, Craig kicks open the door, and I think the crowd was laughing so hard initially. Bitch. Yeah, and he just goes, Darian, you bitch, and like shoots John and kills him. And it's immediately like hard cut to something else.
That's the other part too, is we do that, all of that. And what we see is he says that, and we hear a gunshot while John jumps through a window. And it isn't until later that we see that we cut to like the Navy guy, and then we see him dead. And then later we find out he strangled his wife during that same scene.
He slapped the shit out of her several times.
Or slapped her or something, yeah.
They really piled on how abusive he was in the last like 10 seconds of the movie. They were just like, by the way, he's a horrible person, remember?
Yeah.
Like we fucking got it.
It's like, we do all that. We have the symbolism. We have the shot set up. And then I feel like the way this movie works is then they like look at the footage and they're like, yeah, the part where we shot him didn't look good. So fucking scrap that, whatever.
We didn't even talk about when he kills that other man, the random dude in the bungalow who takes his woman that he traded for the boat and is like making out with her, which we get a sweet focal pull in that moment. We get like an exterior shot. It was like the one shot I noticed for some reason, but we're staring in at this old man on top of an old woman and it's like really gross. And we're like, no, he's like forcing himself and it's all, and then Craig moves in front of the camera and it focuses on him and then he moves out of frame and it focuses back on them. Then he just sneaks in, like he can't hear, grabs a rifle, puts it to the guy, and the guy's like, don't kill me. And immediately he just fucking pulls the trigger. There's just like blood pouring down the screen, James Bond style.
Yeah. The scene right before that where he trades the woman to this man for the boat is so fucking weird. Like, he's like, he's like, oh yeah, can I get your boat? And he's like, well, can you give me your woman in return? And he like turns to the woman and he's like, he looks kind of like he doesn't want to do it, but he's also like, well, I kind of need the boat, and she's just like, it's okay.
She's like confused at first and then into it and then not into it and then into it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that dude threatens the guy he's negotiating with, threatens the cameraman with or the camera person with a knife. As he pulls it out, it's like, you don't want to do anything hasty. It's like, what the fuck? This weird first person shot. That's where like I feel like the movie shines. Is those weird little quirks of like the cinematographer. What were you thinking when you were trying to get that moment? Was it something that Craig heavily was like, I want the audience to feel threatened and I want them to be right in his face? Or was it actually cinematographer making this decision of, oh, this would really strike people? They'd be surprised by it.
Did Craig edit it?
No, he did not. Somebody else edited it. They might have been
somebody
Craig
else had to work
pseudonym.
through this mess.
Yeah, Jesus. I had one other scene that I wanted to, like, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but the final scene of the movie, where his financial advisor with a 6th grade education is coming in and yelling at him about how he's squandering all his wealth. Like, we have established at no point throughout the movie that he is losing money at all, really. Like,
the only time we've done it is when they're standing in Long Beach talking about how he's like, I want my sister to have like a record deal, and Arthur's like, well, we have collectors calling us. And he's like, well, we just delay as long as we can. We make our interest off our money off of other people's interest. Doesn't make any sense logically in a financial stance.
Okay.
But he's got a guy who has like a 6th grade education to back him up on it. And then the only other time is when the dude from the bank shows up. We forgot about that.
Oh, I don't remember that scene.
Oh my God, you don't remember that scene?
We're from the bank. Mr. Alexander's supposed to make $6 million in payments on $60 million. To date, we have only received $35,000.
You people are amazing.
You people are amazing. You don't pay your bills.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Fucking guy's like, we're from the bank.
But like I guess they're hinting at it, but like he's just made $145 million off this movie, and his financial advisor's like, you got to stop doing all this other bullshit and get back to the astrology. Like, that's how we make our money, is on the astrology.
We've been diversifying.
What does that even mean? Like, how are you making money off astrology? Is that government contracts? Is it just that lucrative that you're just not working for them right now? But like, the one example that we have of him diversifying away from astrology is this movie that he made a shitload of money on, and then we're not really like privy to any things that he's engaged in that have lost him money. Like, it's unclear why he would be in any sort of financial stress. Like, we maybe see examples of, there are creditors coming after him, but like, why? He seems to be, every time the movie discusses his finances or what he's doing, it seems to be going great.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, his financial advisor's like, oh, you're about to go bankrupt, or, blah, blah, blah. You're crazy. You got to get back to the astrology and stop doing all this other stuff. And Craig's like, I'm making a TV show and blah, blah, blah. And you can get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, he talks about doing like 27 TV shows and like spreading his budget. He's like,
is that just something that they didn't get to shoot? He made a bunch of TV shows that failed or something?
We watched part of it. So like they show sequences of the downfall, but because of the way the movie's edited, you really can't tell what the fuck's going on, obviously.
Oh, okay.
But Craig also loves to show you a TV. He loves to make you watch TV on the movie.
Of himself. He has a TV on top of a TV.
That's so when you're watching the TV on top of the TV, you're watching the downfall of Craig Denney, because at that point they're talking about how another astrologer predicted more accurately a naval submarine crashing. And at the same time on the bottom screen, there's like some priests or some shit. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But that's like when he starts to lose his
did he
grip.
lose the military contract?
Yeah, he
at that
loses
point?
the footing. That and when he killed that man, and the fucking admiral's like, my God, son, did you have to kill that poor bastard? And he just gives a smug fucking look. But yeah, and then like when he's bragging about buying actresses like hamburger meat by the pound, like that kind of shit, like that's so close to his downfall where he's like, well, I'm going to cast my wife in everything and I'm going to just spread all over this fucking studio scene. And then everything he makes just, I guess, turns to shit. But yeah, we don't see that.
Yeah, I guess like he has to buy out the contract of the woman he fires that he puts his wife in as an actress, and he's trying to make her an actress. And that whole scene, he's surrounded by paintings he's just bought.
Yes.
He just lays out in his yard.
Exorbitant
so I guess we're
wealth.
supposed to see he's wasting money, I guess.
Just constant excess everywhere. Yeah, which is partially why I lifted the synopsis from Wolf of Wall Street, because this movie kind of it wishes that it could be that kind of grounded like excess. I would say it's really interesting because the endings of both movies, Wolf of Wall Street is such a cynical and biting ending. And this is the idealistic ending, I feel like. This is what, somebody would want. Oh yeah, the guy who's an asshole who abuses all his finances and his friends and whatever else ends up poor and crying by an empty pool. But Jordan Belfort's still out there giving fucking speeches and on Twitter inspiring quote unquote people. That it's kind of fascinating to see this told this way. It speaks to the optimism of Craig Denney's 70s, I guess. I don't really know, because we're about to get Taxi Driver like in the same year, and I don't know. There's so much in the cinematic universe that's about to happen. Or the universe of the cinema. I don't want to use the cinematic universe.
Please don't use that term. John, on IMDb, it says that this movie is an hour 36.
That is a lie.
Is there an alternate cut out there somewhere, or are they just wrong?
Nope, they're just wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Just like their synopsis
17?
is wrong. Yeah. It wishes it could be.
Yeah, it's really short. When it doesn't feel like it when you're watching it, but
no, it feels much longer.
Yep.
It feels so long until suddenly it doesn't, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, until you hear the sound of the drums.
Yeah.
And then you know it's as good as done.
Yeah, this is one funny detail. I sat down this time and I actually wrote out the whole thing where he fucking sells the jewels. And I was like, wow, the math actually worked out. Like, when I first heard it, I was so fucking confused by his rambling about whatever. But all of those voiceovers where Denney just like describes crap at length and in detail, it's unnecessary for a movie that just glosses over other crap.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to me.
That they got that logically accurate for the math.
Yeah. Well, it's just like he'll have a scene where it's just like, oh yeah, they got bit by a snake and now they're dead or whatever. And then, she got swallowed alive. And then it's like, now stop and let me explain in detail where I hid the jewels all over Tahiti, exactly how many separate deposits there are. He's going to pay me. I like the love that you in detail of like, he's going to pay me cash up front because I got to travel.
Honestly,
and then he's going to get these 5 installments, which I'm going to mail to him in letters from anywhere. I'm
That's
like,
the whole laundering logic.
What do we need this detail for?
Dude, OJ wishes he could write something like this. It's like, if I did it, make a movie about if I did it and that kind of shit. It really seems like, Craig incriminates himself at every corner in this movie. Who knows if he actually did this kind of shit, but he just has such a solid backing for, all right, he laid out enough instructions on how you would fence jewels in Tahiti. Maybe he did that shit. Who fucking knows? But
but the fact that like there's on location filming in Kenya, Tahiti, and France, like fucking blows my mind. Like they have that prison, they have the ruins or whatever, they have all this stuff in Tahiti, the underwater shots, like. That was when we first watched this, where I was like, how did this insane man who doesn't understand how anything works get enough budget to get a crew to go to Tahiti and film shit?
Yeah. Well, he
But
We
then
may
he
never
can't
know.
put together a room that looks like a police headquarters.
yeah. We will never know. The one thing that I do know is that Denney was investigated by the FBI in his later life for impersonating other people. So
I don't
Yeah,
think
I'm pretty
he's
certain
physically
tax fraud
capable
came up towards
of
the end too,
impersonating
right?
anyone.
Like,
yeah.
yeah, right. How could he be anyone but Craig Denney?
Yeah, I don't think he even has the imagination to try to impersonate anyone.
Yeah. I also found out an interesting thing was he was working on a movie before he died, another movie that was going to be an underwater film called Oceanic Opera, A Sea Odyssey.
Oh
He was
my.
working on it with his wife, who is the president, who became the president anyway, of the film company that published this movie, basically. There's a whole like weird mess of, I assume, him climbing a ladder in that company and then marrying the president. It's just like, all right,
That's one way to do it.
I guess that happens.
Yeah. No, I think she shot up because she was like a beautician.
Yes.
And then like it just like this movie, time skips 2 weeks later, she's president of the company.
Yeah, and there was something else about that company, the Republic Pictures, being owned by a former CIA front as well. There's like a bunch of other weird shit. When I looked into it, I was like, what is this? There's so much behind all of these things.
Yeah. Supposedly they produced other movies, of which Barracuda is the only like
1978's
one that you
Barracuda.
could even possibly find footage, that you can find.
Yep. The others were called Death Rays from the Sky. I wonder what that's about. And Curse of the Red Witch. I also wonder what that's about.
Yeah. He got caught up in this like suit. That was the other part too, where I was like, I thought it was all bullshit, but there's these weird moments where I'm like, money passed hands though. I'm like, not sure where it came from. But yeah, like whatever that last movie is, that Oceanic movie, they sued a guy who used some of the footage they filmed for it.
Mhm.
And he ended up, I guess, settling, or they got money for it. The court ruled in their favor or whatever. But I was like, there's footage somewhere. They filmed something, and there's footage somewhere, but it never ended up doing anything or going anywhere. And some guy got sued for using it, and he never did anything with it, and it never went anywhere. Like, it's just fascinating.
John spends every waking moment trying to track down that
I
footage.
will find you.
I know. I want to find that.
And I will watch you.
Yeah. He told everyone that he was making money with his company that he owned that
Sure he
did
was.
like computational horoscopes or whatever. Like he had a computer that would print horoscopes, and it was making him millions. And that's how he made the money to make this movie. But I'm like, you can find nothing about that company. It doesn't appear to have ever existed or been used by anyone, but apparently he was making millions of dollars giving horoscopes to companies.
Sounds like the computer business wasn't that tough for him. But yeah. Well, I don't have any other topics to talk about. We've talked about the mystique of this movie, how it stacks up to other bad movies, why I'm obsessed with it, if there's any artistic aspects to it, which we all have varying opinions on. But one thing is for sure, the cinematographer was having a good time. It seemed like there was definitely some fun getting the shots for some of this movie.
At least somebody was.
Yeah. Did y'all have any closing remarks?
Don't watch this movie.
Dixon with the cautionary. You've just pressed a lot of people
that's
to
what
watch
I
it?
think is interesting is I think if you turn the room on for someone
Mhm.
relatively quick, they would be like, oh my God, this guy's so fucking weird.
Yep.
And probably back off. Right. And just be like, okay, well, this is sucks. This is stupid. But I feel like if you turn this movie on, it takes long enough for someone to be like, what am I watching? They're
By the
already
time
like
they-
halfway through the movie.
Yeah, by the time they decide to stop, it's too late.
It's like you might as well just keep going. This bizarre. Like I absolutely think anyone could start this movie and just probably will finish it because they're just so confused and that's where because it seems like a movie and you just start watching it, it seems like it's a movie.
Yeah. It's got the score. It sounds like it has the score anyway. I mean, the Grand Hotel that plays during it by Procol Harum. I've never heard of that band, but has that like kind of orchestral operatic tone to it. Starts all serious with that flyover shot of the carnival. It's just like, oh, we're in for something. And then the moment that you're dropped into it, you're like, what the fuck is this shit? This kid gets arrested and put in a chain gang? Okay. Yeah, like all the chain, all of the breadcrumbs in this story, I feel could pull people to it. So, yeah, well, with that, I guess, Dixon, I already know what you're going to say, but would you recommend this movie?
No, definitely not.
Ryan, would you recommend this movie?
You know, when you hear something about wine from like a sommelier, where he's like, oh, it has tastes, notes of oak and vanilla and some blackberry. And then you taste it and you're like, this fucking tastes like
grapes.
Wine.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
This is a movie that it's hard to recommend, in that it's like you have to have such an appreciation for movies and then the bizarreness of the world and humanity to be able to like actually sit down and not just be confused and repulsed, but actually fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, this is if you sit around with your friends and you watch The Room and you laugh, and you go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show midnight showing, and you're like, I'm looking for these off the wall movies. This is the one to go and see and be like, wow, I haven't even begun to scratch the depth of like weird ass movies. And this isn't the like Asylum Films or any of the dretch that's all over Tubi, like all these free streaming platforms, and now where it's like they know they're fucking filming it in their own house for pennies and then hoping they get something. This is someone trying to craft something and failing so spectacularly.
Yes.
that it on a whole nother level. So like, I do recommend it. I like, obviously I've shared it with other people. Like, I think I'm in that same spot with John, where it's like just so fascinatingly bizarre and bad to me. Because like Forbidden Planet, I know what they're going for. It's a weird ass movie, but I get it. This one, it's like, I don't even get it. I don't get it. I don't get what they're going for. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm absolutely lost.
Do you mean Forbidden Zone? Ryan?
Forbidden Zone?
There
No,
you
Forbidden
go.
Planet's actually relatively straightforward. My bad.
Yeah, is that the one with Leslie
Forbidden
Nielsen?
Zone. Yeah, Forbidden Planet's just straight up
B-movie
schlocky,
schlock.
an actual schlocky sci-fi. Forbidden Zone's a bizarre musical
There you go.
nonsense.
Yeah, I 100% no qualification recommend this film.
I saw that you moved it up from 0.5 star to 1 star on Letterboxd
And
on
I
your
linked-
recent viewing.
Yeah, and I linked that clip from Always Sunny where Danny DeVito goes, I get it now. Because I was texting my buddy back and forth and I was like, is it this? And we were both just freestyling about what the fuck the movie could mean. And I realized in that moment that the conversation you can have around this movie is beautiful. And I think that it's because it is, I say this often jokingly, but it is a communal trauma that must endure this kind of movie. If you watch it alone, you will not have a great time.
Unless you're John.
Unless you're me. And you've worked up to this point, then yes, you would have a good time.
John, if you're listening to this, you would like watching it alone.
But like, it really takes a group, which is why I decided it would be my birthday thing. Was like, I can get a bunch of people together. We can all be exposed to this. Everybody
I can
will
guilt
react.
them all into watching this terrible movie because they'll come over for my birthday.
Exactly. The perfect plan. It's not a victimless crime, but it's the perfect plan.
Oh no, there were some very real victims involved.
And I would also like to take this moment to make a public apology to several of my friends who had to sit through this movie and wonder why the fuck they were friends with me, or even acquaintances I've just recently met. You know who you are.
The person I was sitting next to fell asleep for half the movie.
That is right. I'm glad that I was able to get a good nap in.
They
for
woke
you.
up and knew as much as everyone else.
Exactly. Everybody tried to explain what they saw. They went into the cave, as Aristotle would put it, and who fucking knows? But yeah, I would recommend this just because I'm so tired of the mainstream aspects of like The Room, where people are like, oh, bad movies are fun because they're this ironic, whatever. For me, The Astrologer is an artist trying and failing, and it's beautiful and tragic in so many ways. And it's also annoying, pretentious. It's this mix of all of the things that repulse you at the same time can draw you in, at least for me. And I'm just so enamored with it as that kind of film. Like Neil Breen's out there continuing to make a Neil Breen film every year or 2 years or whatever on a green screen. He's not really innovating on his style. He's just getting lower and lower in budget. And Wiseau is trying to catch the lightning in a bottle that was his failure And that all feels so forced. But my friends keep sending me links about those movies, thinking that I would care, but it's no longer earnest or genuine. And The Astrologer will forever be earnest and genuine because Craig Denney did not live long enough to make another one. Not Craig Lenny. And I think that preserves it in this really strange way for me. And so I would recommend it. It's unlike anything else that you'll probably see in terms of its budget and what it tries to accomplish. And it's not one of those asylum films. And when you get out of it and try to explain it to your friends, you won't know what the fuck you're trying to say. Like it's so puzzling. But I think that's the draw.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway. Like it's not, there are movies that know they're kind of like not good, or people that are trying, but no, they don't have it yet. Like I have a vision and I'm going to give it a good shot. And I know it's not, this isn't a big movie. The Room is an example of someone who's like trying and kind of failing. And I do find that interesting, but the scale of it, like there have to be 10 times as many people that worked on this film than worked on The Room. Like I always love it when I sit there and I have to imagine like a boardroom of people that let something go by them. I'm always fascinated by those. Like, and honestly, they didn't, I guess, because this movie didn't really get like released or promoted or anything. Yeah. So I guess enough people were in the way to be like, no, Craig.
There were 61 crew members on this film.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had like script supervisors.
And a lot of cast too.
Yeah.
Like
cast of like 25 people or something
more than that with all the extras in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of, there's definitely some extras in Tahiti.
It's a lot of shirtless dudes with no lines.
Yeah. Yep, that's right. Craig is shirtless and has too many lines.
Yes, far too many lines and far too few shirts.
I think that wraps it up then. Dixon is a strong refute. Don't watch this movie. That is his warning. Ryan and I recommend it. Out of the madness of our minds, we find something wholly mesmerizing about this feature, and it can't keep us away. And with that, I think we'll draw this episode to a close. I thank you both, gentlemen, for being here with me during this weird fucking experiment in time. Deserved. From Afterthoughts, I have been your host, John Garcia. Keep watching the stars. With me is
Ryan King. I guess our solar lunar returns on our natal transit charts are done.
Come again.
Should I invest or not? And also joining us,
Michael Dixon. As long as I could remember, I always wanted to be an astrologer.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.